Hello and welcome to another episode of Around the Shop. I did a video a while back on cutting custom tubes for making pins, and Steve Blakey sent me a question, and he wasn't the only one. He was the first guy to ask it. Several other people asked as well. How do you round the tubes out after you cut them? Because sometimes when you cut, brass is soft and it will bend. Sometimes you get lucky and it doesn't. But what I'm going to do today is show you the easiest way to round those tubes out if they do get a little bit deformed. Let me show you what I've got on the table. I've got some 10-inch long 7mm tubes. I've already used one of them, or part of one of them, so I'll bring that up and we'll use that for this project. I have a mechanical pencil kit from Penn State. I have the tubes and the center ring. Now, if you've ever assembled a mechanical pencil from Penn State, the Slimline set, you know that these go in the front and the back blank, and then you press it together by pressing this trim ring between the two, and it makes a solid blank. There is no movement. The front and back blank are solid, and the pen ejects and retracts the ink, or ejects and retracts the lead by pushing on the button on the back like a standard lead pen. So what I need is a solid single tube in order to make a modified pen that is exactly the length of these two tubes and this centerpiece. Now I've measured the two tubes and they are 2 inches apiece, so that's relatively easy, 4 inches. I measured this center trim band, it's 1/4 inch. So I need to cut this tube to 4 1/4 inches. I've got a ruler here and I'm just going to make a mark at 4 1/4 inches. There we go. This is a pipe cutter. I picked this up at the big box store, and to be honest with you, I think I paid less than $5 for it. I think they're relatively inexpensive. It does a great job cutting these tubes. There's one disadvantage, and that disadvantage is whenever you cut a tube with it, it will distort the tube a little bit. It bevels the end of the tube, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a minute. You get this tightened down, you just tighten this little wheel up, and not too tight, you just snug it up. I'm going to let that sit for a minute. Normally, I like to cut these out on my scroll saw. I don't have much deformation because I've gotten to where I cut so many of them, I've gotten pretty good at it. Once in a while I will, and this is the same method I use for that. The reason I'm showing this pipe cutter is because many of you might want to take a chance at making one of these modified mechanical pencils, but you might not have a scroll saw. Maybe you're not ready to put out that kind of money and purchase one yet. They can be expensive. This tool, though, for $5, I'm sure that any of you could come up with $5 to be able to make these tubes if you wanted to make modifieds. So I'm showing this method instead of the scroll saw. And this automatically deforms the tube, which is perfect for this because I can show you how I fix it. You can see I've got this little wheel here. This is the cutting wheel lined up right on the black mark. There are two little roller wheels in this cutter that this tube lays against. All you do is let me get my ruler out of the way, you roll your tube, snug your wheel. Roll your tube, snug your wheel. You continue to do that until it cuts through. All right, we've now got our pipe cut, and if you take a look, or our tube cut, it's beveled. On this end, it's not. This is what it should look like. What we're going to do is we're going to select a punch from our punch kit, and this is the size just below 7mm. It says 7/32. My set is not metric, it's actually standard, but this will go right on through. So what I'm going to do is put it in the end of here, and I'm going to just put my thumb against it, and I'm going to pry against the tube to sort of round or flatten out the bevel. When I feel like I've got it somewhat flattened out, I'll bring my 1/4 inch. This is actually 1/4 inch because that's the size of your mandrel, and it's still not ready to go through. What we do is I hold on to it, I take my hammer, and I just lightly tap it. The brass will give, and it will pop through the other end. Now, we're going to head over to the table saw, and I'm going to apologize because it's going to be a tiny bit dark over there, but I'll show you how I finish this tube. I lay my tube on a nice solid surface, and you can see the black mark there where I cut the tube, and I simply roll it and I tap with a hammer. Not hitting hard, just basically letting the weight of the hammer tap the tube. Now what you can see is my 1/4-inch punch goes in and out of the tube very easily. This tube has now been squared up and will perfectly accept any of the pin parts. With the tube being squared up on both ends, not dealing with the bevel, I'm going to give it one last check, and I'm exactly 4 1/4 inches. This tube is ready to be glued inside of my blank. The blank can now be turned, and I can put together a modified mechanical pencil. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. That was a great question. You know, I make these pins all the time, and I've kind of got my method down, and I can just zip through them, and I don't even think about things like this. This was a problem that I had to figure out a solution for in the very beginning. This punch set, I use this for disassembling pins, and I use it for things like cleaning up my tubes. If you don't have one of these, I strongly urge you to get one, because if you ever need to disassemble a pin, they're invaluable. This set I got from Penn State. I know that you can get a set from Harbor Freight. It's the same thing. You can get your 20% off coupon, and you can get it for a bargain. So pick you up one of those. If you want to do some modified pins and don't have a scroll saw, pick you up one of these. They're about $5. You can probably get that at Harbor Freight too. And you'll have the ability to make any slim pin you need to make. You can also replace tubes. I keep these long tubes around. If I have a 7mm tube, say for a Duchess, which is a little longer than a Slimline tube, I can cut one. I don't have to go out and order a tube. I can make any size that I need. So I keep the tubes on hand. I really hope you found this useful. I hope I didn't draw it out too much. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop for this video. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon. Have a great evening.